Okay, let's share my screen. All right. So before we get started, I just want to do a little introduction about who I am, so you can kind of, just know who I am. So my name, like I mentioned before, is Amanda. My role here at Yorkville University is an employability coach, and essentially what I do is I support new and upcoming graduates in the BBA project management field, looking for either part-time or full-time work, right? So a typical day for me looks like creating resumes, exploring labor markets, understanding how to read a job posting, where to look for these jobs, setting them up for interviews and preparing them for interviews through lots of mock interview tips and preparedness. So if you are looking for any career support, please do reach out to myself or one of my awesome colleagues that will be able to support you along your career journey. All right, so today's agenda is we're going to go over four major things as part of learning about your careers. And the first step is to understand and to actually know yourself, which will include things such as the foundation of working, understanding what your strengths are, your values, and your interests. From understanding who you are, we will now go on to the second step, which will be how to research, and that will include things like goal setting, self-care throughout the career planning, and then we will go on to understanding where we can actually do our research. Okay, we're going to learn more about that and what to actually look out for. And then last but not least, our next step is going to be to implement your research so you can have a successful job searching process. All right, so let's begin. All right, so the very, very first step into knowing yourself and to understanding about careers is to understand where you are in your career planning as of right now. So as Snigdha mentioned, if you could please log into menti.com, that's www.menti.com, use the code 4317-4205. We see one respond. I just want to know, where are you in your career planning as of right now? So I see one person is unsure what kind of career they're looking for. Is there any? I'm just going to wait to see if there's any other responses.
Hey, Amanda, as everyone's answering this question, I think you're sharing the wrong screen. Can you share the notes? I'm sorry, the presentation slides?
Oh, give me 1 second. I think I, oh, hold on.
No problem. I'll let you know when we can see it.
Okay, I thought I was sharing the screen. Is this better?
Yeah, much better.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Okay. So 3 people say I'm unsure what kind of field and role I would like to pursue as a career path. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Oh, and 1 person says they have a good sense of what kind of field they would like to pursue as a career path. Awesome. All right. So for those who are unsure, hopefully at the end of today's session, you will have a better understanding of what kind of career you would like to pursue. Awesome. All right. So the first step is career planning step by step. Okay. So this is kind of like our life circle. All right. So the first step is, like I mentioned before, is to know yourself, right? And we're going to find out throughout this webinar, what are your interests? Okay. What do you like to do? What interests you? What are your values? Okay. What do you like to do? What values you to work? Okay. What is your personality? What are some skills that you have that is going to contribute to your best career? And then what we're going to do is we're going to go on to exploring possibilities, which is identifying and researching, trying things out, narrowing down your searches effectively in a step-by-step process, and making sure that you actually have the pros and cons of each career step. Okay. And then we're going to make a choice on which career path you would like to take based on your strengths, your values, the research that you have conducted, and also evaluating those pros and cons. And then once we have a choice, we are now going to make this plan happen and put your plan into action by learning along the way and achieving your goals. Okay. So again, this process here, sometimes you would have to do this once, but for others, this may be a process that is kind of trial and error, which for my case, when I was learning about careers in my field, I had to go through this process, many times, right? So there's not just one career for everyone, there's multiple. So we want to make sure that you actually understand this whole cycle effectively. All right, so let's go into step one a little more into detail and let's understand who we are as individuals. And again, before we begin, I want to go back onto Mentimeter, and I want to understand, what are you good at? I want to see each of you identify some of the skills that we think we are good at in our day-to-day lives, whether that's professionally or personally. All right, I see customer service, excellent. Communicating, very, very good. Building relationships, that's awesome. Writing, very good. Data, all right. Organizations, very good, right? These are all awesome. Academics, sports, awesome, right? So based on this is a very good start, right? So we are now getting aware of what we love to do, which is very, very good when we are learning about our careers, right? Analyzing is really good, right? So if we're, for example, I'm going to use data. So if we're really good at data and maybe analyzing for this individual, we maybe want to focus on learning, seeing what kind of careers are in this field. All right, very, very good. Awesome. All right. So I'd want to give a little explanation here about the career world, because when we begin looking for careers, it's important to understand the environment that we would like to work in and understand what is right for us, right? And some of the career wheel focuses on many different topics, okay? So we want to understand, what is our work life and experiences, right? What are our past experiences that are going to contribute to a career that we choose, okay? What are some things that we've learned throughout our experiences? So for many students, when I coach them throughout this process, I get them to understand, or I get them to reflect on what are some things that they've learned throughout their schooling that can contribute to the industry that they're looking for. So for many project management students, for an example, I always say, you do a lot of teamwork, right? So that is something that is a learning experience, okay? And then we want to also look at significant others. So part of the career wheel is figuring out what if a career involves flexibility for you. So for those who have families, right now, is remote something that's very, very important to you? Are you looking for a hybrid model? Or are you somebody who needs to be in the office and interact with others, right? Based on certain things, okay? And then also your personal style, right? So are you like me, who can work a 9 to 5 job every day? Or are you with somebody who needs to travel, who needs to go have a different job every single day, right? These are all personal styles that we need to understand about ourselves. And then we also want to reflect on our values, right? So what is important to us when we enter a career? And then I already mentioned things such as our interests, which we will learn more about, as well as our skills, and then our career opportunities based on all of these great topics. Okay. All right. So when we look at the career world, I want to focus on the bottom half here. Okay. So it's very, very important that when we are looking at careers, we are focusing on these 4 major topics here. Okay, because this is what's going to help you understand what field you may get into eventually. Okay, and the top skills are your interests, okay, your skills, interests, values, and personal styles. This all reflects on our career. All right, because we cannot get into a career if we do not understand our skills, right? We cannot get into a career if we don't understand what we actually are interested in. And that's why I got you to reflect back on some of the things that interest you, right? And then we also want to make sure that we're getting into a career that has the same values as us, okay? And then obviously we want to look at our personal style, because for some that is very, very big, like myself, right? I know that I need to be in a career that involves communicating with others, a lot of teamwork building, but also working independently, right? So so something like an admin job probably wouldn't work best for me, okay? So we're gonna dive into this a little deeper, but I just want you to understand the value and the importance of really taking the time to reflect on these skills, of these top four interests, okay? Excuse me. Okay, so here's the wheel of internal factors, which focuses mainly on our skills. Okay, so when we are looking at figuring out what are our top skills, we want to look at a few things. Okay, again, we want to focus on what are you good at, what you've already done, right? Now we also want to focus on what are our accomplishments that we have done based on things that you interest us, right? So what are some, so for example, when I coach students, I always ask them, is there something that you're so proud of? Either getting employee of the month, right? That is a big accomplishment. Or were you part of the dean's council and got an award for this, right? Those are our major accomplishments that may seem so small, but it will add to understanding and could contribute to something that you want to get into eventually. Okay. And then we also want to consider our transferable skills, right? So things that are learned throughout your personal life or your professional life, right? Things such as working in a team, right? For those who don't have work experience, right? For those who have work experience, what are those transferable skills look like? Maybe you're good at math, right? That can be a transferable skill that you have learned throughout the workplace. Okay, and we want to make sure that we highlight these before we get into the careers that we're looking at. And then what motivates? What are some motivation skills for you? What motivates you? Okay, we want to self-reflect on these things. And then what are your employability skills? So what is an employer going to think that you're really good at and going to acknowledge you for? So personally for me, I can say maybe I'm very punctual, right? That's an employability skill. Maybe leadership, right? Can build communication, relationships with others. Those are all skills that an employer, sorry, is looking for. Okay. And then you also want to reflect on your hard and soft skills, okay? So once we do all of this, this will give you a better understanding of what you're good at and again, what career that could possibly be best for you. All right. So when it comes to skills, when you work with an employability coach like myself or a career advisor, you will get access to the skills scan assessment that will help you understand your skills a little better and break it down in categories for you based on your top skills. So this is an example of my assessment. So as you can see, my top skill is relationship, followed by communication, management and leadership, and then creative, okay? And then here are the skills that are associated with each of the categories. So these are some skills that will help you uh, along this journey, okay? For creating a resume, uh, going to an interview, etc. Okay? And it'll make it very, very easy for you. So you don't have to think too much and reflect. All right. So step two, excuse me. Step two is now we want to understand how to actually do the research based on all of those things that we've learned about ourselves, right? So now that we have identified, okay, I am good at communicating. I am good at, I have skills such as punctual, time management. I can work independently as a team, right? I'm proficient in Microsoft Word, Excel, right? We now want to understand how can we actually do this research so that we can start applying to these careers. So the first step into understanding what career is out there for us is to understand and to start exploring the labor market and to do your labor market research. Okay. So when we do our labor market research, we are learning about a wide range of career options in your field. Okay. To help us make our career decisions. This will add details in your resume, cover letter that bring you to light that parts of your background that are relevant to potential employers. Okay. And then based on this labor market research, we are going to be prepared to search for online through informational interviews that will be discussed a little bit more in detail. And then and then also based on your past experiences. Okay. So when we do our labor market research, it's very, very important that we make notes. So have a notepad if you're using computers, write it on Microsoft Word, make sure that you're organized because we want to make sure that you actually are visualizing it so you can always go back and reflect. Okay. All right. So when we we're going to go back onto Mentimeter, and I want to understand what is important to you to have at work. So is it flexibility, recognition, good management, room for growth, or is it other? Okay, so I see one person says flexibility, another says room for growth, other, okay, very good. Two people says room for growth. Oh, another one says flexibility. Okay. So there is a range. Very good. Awesome. This is very important to understand, right? Because we don't want to get into a career or job that doesn't have what is important to us as an employee. Okay. All right. So some questions to keep in mind as we go on to researching are things such as, how does this field relate to my strengths, interests, values, and needs? What level would I be likely to start in at this field? Okay. What are some of the common entry-level roles in this field, which there are many, which you want to find through online websites, Glassdoor, Indeed, LinkedIn, etc. Okay. So again, what are some of the top skills right now that are in demand for the field that I'm looking for? Okay, and you want to make sure if you maybe don't have the skill or maybe you want to brushing up on it, you maybe want to also look at some courses, etc. to help you. Okay, and then you want to also consider what are some trends that are happening in this field, right? So for example, is this a field that has a lot of turnover? Or is this a field that jobs are always in demand, etc. Okay. Also, you want to consider what is a typical day-to-day like for this job, right? Because again, that's going to go back to the career. If we go back to the career where they're about our personal style and what is important to us before we look for a job. Okay. Again, what do I likely need additional qualifications? So based on answering the questions of maybe by any skills, or things that are in demand, you want to look at other qualifications. Also look at alternative job titles for this field, which is very, very important, okay? Because many students get stuck on, for example, project management, right? However, they're unaware how many project management additional or alternative job titles that are not necessarily project management, but will give you the experience. So things such as admin, business analyst, right? Those are all great things that are an alternative to a project management job title. Okay. What are the career development and earnings potential for this job? So if room for growth is one of them, if salary is important to you, that is something that you want to definitely look at. And then last but not least, what are other career paths are related to this area, right? As not one job can lead you to just one career path. There is many career paths that you can take for one job. All right. All right. So this one is very, very important. Career exploration and self-care. So as we know, when we are, looking for a job or looking for careers in our field, it can be very, very overwhelming. We can get information overload. So we want to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves throughout this process. Okay. So before we do that, we want to ask ourselves and take time and reflect. What are our immediate needs as of right now? And maybe write that down, right? So for example, is your immediate need to get a full-time job? Or is your immediate need is to maybe just get a job right now to gain experience? So once you figure that out, a career advisor, an employability coach can help you put some time to complete this research. Okay. Now, when can you put aside time to complete this research? So are you a new student right now? Are you a graduate? Do you have time? How much time can you put, right? Set a time for your calendar so you're not overwhelming yourself with, if it's busy season for exams, right? You want to make sure that you're scheduling time, 30 minutes a day, whatever works best for your schedule. You want to make sure that you're being organized and writing these things down, right? It's always important and effective to seek some support. I know I did when I was going through this process through family, friends, even professionals, professors, etc. They can give you that advice that maybe you weren't aware of. Okay. Now, it's also very important to remember there is no one way to do this, and no, there's not one career for you, right? Careers can be a winding road, right? Many people start careers and then they find that's not for them, so they hop on to the next. Don't get stuck on one career path. Remember, there's so many different paths that we can take. All right. I would suggest choosing no more than 3 fields to research at a time. Again, because if we go over that third, I know for me personally, I'm going to get overwhelmed. So please make sure, take care of yourself. Mental health is very, very important. All right. Be organized. Like I mentioned, schedule your time, take lots of notes. And remember, we want to make sure we're setting realistic goals for ourselves so that we are not disappointed and don't let ourselves down. All right. So when we are setting realistic goals, it's very important to understand how to actually set realistic goals through a SMART goal, which is also known for a specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely goal. All right. So when we talk about specific, I want to know, what do you want to do, right? You need to ask yourself, what do you want to do? What is your goal right now? Is it measurable? How will you know when you've actually reached this goal? Okay. Achievable. Is it in your power to actually accomplish this? Do you have the tools? Do you have the time, like we talked about it, right? And then again, is this actually realistic for you? Okay. And timely is, when exactly do you want to accomplish this, right? It's very important to have a set deadline um, in case, job postings close and stuff like that. All right, so I'm going to provide an example of how I would set a SMART goal for myself if I am looking for a career. So by the end of the month, right? So that is, here we go, is right away specific. I plan to research 3 career options that will build on my strengths, match my personality, and reflect my values. Okay, so as you can see right here, I have a specific goal, I have a measurable, it's attainable, and it's realistic. Okay, so that's just an example that hopefully you can follow based on what you're looking to accomplish. All right. So step 2, now that we understand how to do the research, where can we actually research all of this wonderful information that we have reflected on? All right. So we want to look, obviously, we want to look online, things such as job descriptions, job boards, online communities, etc., through our networking. That's going to be a very, very big key, especially to our day and age. Another thing that we want to do is we want to look at informational interviews, which again, I will discuss in this section, but just to give you a basic knowledge right now, it is one-to-one conversations that you will set up to gain information with an industry professional. Okay. And again, that's to build your networking and just to gain a little bit more information. And then last but not least, you want to look at your experiences, right? Where can you volunteer? for certain industries? Is there any internships, whether that's paid, unpaid? Is there any courses that you can take based on this career that you're looking to get into that will benefit you before you get into this career? Okay. All right. So here are just some things that we can look at. So this one here is the National Occupational, also known as the NOC website. This is mainly used for international students, and I'll explain that a little bit more in detail. We can look at the job banking website. Okay, that will give us information, different job postings, their responsibilities, etc. Okay, Alice is another great tool. And then here are some job searching description sites that are not based in Canada, but it will give you still the same kind of idea and information that you're looking for based on the career. So I would suggest looking at the balance, technician, prospects, and careers in film if you're in film, etc. These again are just examples. There are plenty of more out there that if you research, you'll be able to find. And again, if you need any additional information, you can always reach out and we can support you with that. Okay. Again, you also want to look at some job boards. That's going to be very efficient. And then obviously you want to look at our career services page that has a lot of information about careers specifically in our fields. And then lastly, LinkedIn, our new LinkedIn alumni page that will give us plenty of information and knowledge on upcoming mentorship programs, etc. All right. So this is just a screenshot, a little example of how to use the National Occupational Classification website, okay? So mainly what it's used for is to look for job titles, like I mentioned, work on what a person does, okay? I recommend if you are an international student, this is going to give you a breakdown on what category job title you are looking for. So I know for international students, they tend to want to look for a job under NOC B. So this website here is going to give you all of that information necessary to see whether or not the job you're looking for falls under that NOC B category. If it doesn't, there also will give you additional job titles that relate to that field, but can be under that NOC B category. All right. So again, if you need access to this website, please do reach out to one of us and we'll be happy to give that to you. All right. Again, this is now the career in page that I was mentioning about. So you can log into careerservices.myyu.ca/your-career-in and just learn a little bit more about your career. So if you're in supply chain management or accounting, it will give you videos, it will give you job titles, skills that are very in trend right now, other career paths that you could take based on this industry, etc. Okay, very, very resourceful for students. All right. And here is just here's the YU page, like I mentioned before. Again, if you would like to join this, we can give you that link. That's not a problem. As you can see, there's 11,000 alumni there where you can connect with, set up, talk to people who have worked maybe in a field that you're interested in, have that similarity, etc. All right. So, what exactly is an informational interview that has been brought up throughout this webinar? So, essentially, what an informational interview is, it's a meeting that you are going to arrange with industry professional to gain information about the job or the career that you're interested in. Okay, it's a chance to learn about whether or not you think you will be a great fit for this career. Okay. It's very, very important, however, to remember that this is not a job interview. Okay. Again, this is just a chance to add to your network and to gain a little bit more knowledge, right? So again, if there's any certificates that you may want to take, if there's any additional skills that maybe you want to brush up on, etc. Okay. So how do we find contacts and requests for these for these interviews, right? We want to find our contact. So we want to pick the target. So for example, if you're looking for a banking position, okay? We want to pick that's our target, right? So pick which company you want to work for. So is that BMO? Is that TD, Scotia, whatever the case may be, that is going to be who your target is, okay? And then you want to do your research on your target, okay? So what is this company all about? Do a little bit of background, right? And then find somebody who maybe works there, right? Find somebody who works at BMO for uh, a project coordinator, at a project coordinator role, and do a little bit of research on that individual. How long have they been there, right? What are um, how long have they been working there? How many connections do they have, etc. Right? Just look again. LinkedIn is very good for this. Okay. You can also use hunter.io to find emails for employers that you want to connect with, etc. Okay. And you also want to pick up the phone and maybe contact these people via phone. All right. You can also do it via email. What you want to make sure that you include the subject line, the hook of the email. So, and then what are you actually looking for? What is your ask? So, are you just looking to see before you apply to a certain position? Are you looking just to gain a little bit more knowledge about the industry itself and not just the job posting? Okay, so make sure that you're very clear. And I have a sample that I can provide for you so that you can just kind of fill in the blanks based on your needs. All right. And again, and you can also pick up the phone and do all of these, but make sure that you have the subject line, the hook, and ask for what you actually need. Okay. All right. So here are some final tips. Again, we don't want to ask for a job. We want to make sure that we have a good first impression. So make sure that you give a background about who you are, okay, and what you're looking to get out of this. Be clear, be positive, have a good tone, be flexible when you're arranging these interviews because again, the employer is taking time out of their day. You want to make sure that you are making this useful. You're not having these random informational interviews that you're not going to just stay connected with. Ask for these referrals, right? You never know if they can help you now or down the line. Stay connected with these people, okay? Always follow up with an email and thank them and say, hey, maybe send over their resume so that they can review, right? Always have a follow up and mark it on your calendar. So say, hey, can I follow up with you in 2 weeks from now? All right, set up the date and then make sure you're on a calendar, set up an email and let them know again that you're going to follow up on the date that you've arranged. Okay, it's very, very important. And this is going to contribute to your network. All right. So again, we want to look at some experiences, right? As I mentioned before. So again, how can we actually find these work? So whether it's seasonal that we're looking for, are we looking for contract, freelancing, part-time or full-time? Those are all things that we can find as we're learning and job searching. Maybe we want to look at some mentorship programs that can help you learn a little bit more about the career, what a typical day on the job is like, etc. Okay. Again, we want to also look at some workshops or short courses to gain a little more knowledge. Internships could be either paid or through co-op. Oh, sorry, paid internships, not through co-op. Sorry. Again, there's new grad internships that are also accelerated. You can job shadow. So for example, you want to find someone maybe on LinkedIn or somebody that you know personally who is in a career that you're interested in. Maybe ask them if you can job shadow them, right? See if you actually like what they're doing, right? I know I've done that in the past and it really did help me look at my options. Also look at some Canada summer jobs, Canada Works, Prince Trust, etc. And then obviously look at some volunteering. That is very beneficial, especially if you're struggling to find work. There's not many jobs. You want to kind of just dip your foot in the door, get your foot in the door. Volunteering is a very good, excuse me, way to gain that experience. Excuse me. All right. So volunteering, like I mentioned, you can inquire at student services. Ask your instructors and professors. Maybe you can volunteer with them, maybe in their classroom. Maybe they have a side gig that you can go to. Search for online volunteer opportunities via Volunteer Canada, Volunteer Match, and then also inquire about volunteer opportunities at organizations that you would like to work for. Again, pick up the phone, right? Send out that email. You never know what's going to happen. I guarantee you, you'll be surprised with the responses that you would get. All right. So we're on our final step, which is what happens next? What are the next steps? Now that we know who we are, we've done the research, now we know how to research. Now, where do we go from here? Let's see. All right, so now we want to evaluate. Okay, so now we've done everything. We want to make sure that we evaluate before we make sure that we're making the right choice for us. So ask yourself the following questions. Out of all the fields that I've researched, which one am I most drawn to and why? Which one right away appeals to me the best? And if you're like me, normally, if I know right away, based on I already can tell as I'm doing the research, I'm gonna make sure I circle, right? That should be easy as you're going. You should already have an idea as you're going through these steps, okay? Which job titles do you think were best for entry-level jobs, right? So for example, do you know that you need to get into a job that has minimal experience, or can you apply for a job that maybe has a little more experience based on what we discovered, okay? Which jobs and values value my strengths and where I could use these in every day. All right. So again, if you saw throughout this process, you understood, okay, I am a communicator. I am an introvert who likes to collaborate with others. I need to be in a team environment. I need to have maybe a little bit more structure. What does that look like for you? What job does that entail? Okay. And then you want to ask yourself, what fields, jobs, and companies did I come across that actually suited my values, right? Which is very important, like I mentioned before. And then last but not least, you want to ask them which fields and jobs suit my immediate needs the best. So if you're looking right now, for a remote job, you're obviously not going to apply for a job that is hybrid. Maybe that's something to also consider, or vice versa. If you need interaction, you don't want to work remote, you can't work remote. Maybe you want to avoid that. And if you find that the industry is mainly remote, then you want to reconsider. Just an example again. Okay. All right. So this is again, now you also want to critique yourself, right? Critique which ones are the best. So give yourself a score. This is gonna weigh out your options and give you a little bit more idea visually, right? So rate yourself out of the skills, right? So 1 to 6, what are my skills, right? Is it how well does this job meet my needs, right? Is it minimal, somewhat, excellent? So for example, is it relationships? Does that meet my needs based on this job that I'm going to apply to? What minimal, somewhat, excellent? Rate yourself, right? Uh, Again, how well will the job meet your needs for each interest? So do this based on this score. You're going to see your results, and that should give you a better understanding of what career you would like to get into. Okay. So if you're like me, I've done this process many, many times, and it has worked for me because I am a visual person, right? So you can do this any way you like, but this is just, again, an example of what has worked in the past for those looking for careers. All right. Now, use your research effectively, okay? So use job titles you come across with to search for job boards, right? Reach out to companies that you come across in your research directly, like I mentioned, that you want to set up. So, hi, my name is Amanda. I come across, your profile through the open job opportunity. I was wondering, if you could give me a little bit more information before I apply, right? That way you set a connection right away, and now you can build on that relationship and add to your network that individual. You want to make sure you're tailoring your resume with demand, skills, and experience. And I highly suggest to reach out to our wonderful team who are experts in this area because we create resumes that are targeted based on each of these jobs, your skills, and the experience that you have. Okay. You want to make sure that you also tailor this with your cover letter to reflect current trends that you would do and understand throughout the labor market research in step one. Okay. And then last, you want to circle back to the new networking connections that you have made throughout this process, just to see maybe if anything's changed. Maybe, like we mentioned before, if you set up some follow ups, you want to follow through. Because I promise you, networking is going to be is very, very key in careers in your field. Okay. All right, and I want to end. Last but not least, this is a wonderful quote from Confucius. So, choose a job you love, and you will never have to work a day in your life. And honestly, this cannot be more true. As for me, honestly, I've gone through the process from step one to step four, and I can honestly say that I found a job that um, I don't wake up every day thinking, oh, I have to go to work. I'm so tired. I'm so drained, right? I love what I do. So for me, this is just something that I'm passionate about. I don't see it as a job. So please, if you can get to a job that you love, I promise you it will not seem like work. And hopefully, after today's webinar, this will sit with you and you'll have a better understanding of some careers and what's important to you and what you value. All right. And if you do have any additional questions, again, please reach out to our career services team at career services at Yorkville U or career services at torontofilmschool.ca for any questions, and one of us will reach out to you uh, as soon as possible. Thank you very much. And I'm going to stop my screen. Yes. Okay.
Amanda, that was absolutely fabulous, filled with fantastic information, right down to the very last minute with the Confucius quote. I think that, if you find something you love, and there's another similar quote I heard recently, you find something you love and get well paid for it. I mean, it's just a beautiful situation. I learned so much from you today. The career wheel, I was fascinated by that. The various elements of research, which, I think we all need to incorporate these into our job search. So thank you so much for all the wonderful stuff. That was fabulous. I just want to point out to everybody watching that we have another upcoming webinar with Amanda, and I'm fortunate enough to be presenting with Amanda this time. And we'll be doing negotiating job offers, and there's just a lot of great stuff in there. I mean, so many people, when doing our research for the webinar, so many people don't realize that you even can negotiate job offers, and people expect it in many cases. So we're going to talk about all the different, like a lot of the different scenarios that come up, and we're going to look at leverage, how you sometimes can have the upper hand in a negotiation and how to utilize that effectively. So I'm going to pop those that registration code into the chat here, and then so you can enroll. That's December 1st, by the way. But we do have quite a few questions, and we're going to try and get through as many as we can in the next few minutes. So let me start with one that came from one of our delegates. How to identify what I am good at and what career choices are right for me? So how can I really narrow it down and identify what the right career choices are?
Well, like I mentioned throughout, I feel like you have to really evaluate and really reflect on what you think is going to be best for you long term, right? So if maybe you want, it's a trial and error type thing as well, right? So if you think that you discover that you're really good at analyzing, right, and that really stands out to you, try to have that career. You'll see maybe you either love it or you don't. But for some, like I said, there's no career path, not one path that you can take, and many people switch their careers as they go. So I would suggest, go with your gut, honestly. I know what you like. Normally, everyone is good with their intuition. Like for me personally, I know that I cannot do statistics. I can't do math just based on my, even my in school, right? Right? So those are some things you also want to consider. Go back to those things. So schooling is very important. High school as well, right? If you hated math or if you love math, those are also some things that you can consider. And write it down and score yourself as well. That we mentioned in the webinar.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So where can I find job titles that might be a good fit, and what additional research should I do after I find these titles?
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many additional job titles that you can, either just search online or I know I have one specifically for project management, and I can definitely send over that link directly via email if for those who like. And what was the question after? What do you do after?
Uh, but once you find the
Mhm.
titles, what should you do after, like after you found them?
Yeah,
How do you
so
find more information?
fiber normally they will have hyperlinks. I find that once a job they'll find
Mm,
hyperlinks to give you additional information. So they'll give you like the roles and responsibilities associated with that job title. And I always say to my students, write them down, the ones that you are good at, so we can make sure that we highlight on your resume and we can reflect. Okay, so you are really good at organization, right? And that's a job title that is required. So it's a lot about writing and reflecting on yourself.
okay. Another question came in, which is quite interesting. What are a few of the questions that I can ask in an informational interview to make sure that I'll enjoy working in the field?
Yeah, you can ask them, what are some additional certificates? What are some challenges of this job? What are some benefits? What does a typical a day look like for this career? Uh, maybe you can ask them if they can review their resume. There are many questions that you ask. You want to make sure that you're asking questions that you want to gain information on, right? So, for example, before if I would apply to a position and I'm setting up an informational interview, my goal is to find out what the job is actually all about, right? So
Hmm.
maybe how long people have been in this role, how many coworkers am I going to be working with? Those are all things that are important to ask.
Okay. It's interesting about informational interviews. I know you hit on this a little bit in the webinar, which was great.
Mhm.
But I think people, and maybe you could elaborate on this, but I think people are like almost nervous to reach out to certain people because they don't realize that, generally, people are willing to help and they're willing to grant you or give you a informational interview. But what, maybe what kind of motivational statement or like, how would you motivate people to do this? Because maybe you reach out once and you don't get a reply, and then you become demotivated. And I think what kind of words of wisdom could you give to keep people persevering, let people persevere?
So what I normally suggest for my students who are looking come to me for career support is I always give them the example because I work with many international students, right? International students, they didn't just one day come to Canada without doing the research and talking to people. So I asked them, walk me through this process, right? Who did you talk to? And obviously they say, okay, I talk to families, I talk to friends, I talk to people who've been in Canada for years who support people in transitioning, right? And do the same thing, right? So, and I always reflect back to jobs, right? So you are not applying to one job, right? You apply to, let's just say, 10 jobs. I can guarantee you 9 out of 10 chances you're not going to hear back from all 10 jobs, right? Based on the
Mm,
experience, right? And you only need that one, you're only going to accept one job more or less, right? So the more you reach out to people, the more chances you're going to get. And all you really need is one person to kind of give you that support, right? And that's what I like to look at, right? What are the more chances you get, the more um, the more opportunities will come arise. So I guess I always say never know what's going to happen. Shoot your shot, right? I say if that one person doesn't respond, that's okay. Move on to the next, right? You don't want to message. I don't suggest messaging 5 people from one company. If that company didn't, reach someone didn't move on to the next, right? You want to also keep your options open. But from based on my experience, those who message, let's just say 5 people, one of them always responds, guaranteed.
mm,
Yeah, I guess
okay.
that's a little motivation. Just don't give up, I say, right? Don't fear. I guess.
So you miss 100% of the shots you don't
Yes,
take,
that's
right?
what I was looking for. I was thinking of the quote. Yes, I was thinking of the quote.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So this is kind of a follow-on to that, and I'm
Okay.
wondering, Amanda, how this is a great question that came in from one of the delegates. How can I make myself stand out when messaging for meeting requests? Like, how can I make myself stand out? You know, these people that I'm reaching out to are getting multiple emails and LinkedIn requests, etc. Is there any kind of proven, tried methodology for doing that, or?
I don't know if there's a proven methodology. However, I would always suggest to be very inviting as possible and personable as possible. Okay. So let's just say you find somebody on LinkedIn, right? You want to mention where you found them from, right? Because you don't want to seem like a stalker. So, for example, if I'm going to message Linda and I don't know, I would say, "Hi, Linda. You know, I came across your company through the open job position at ABC company. I was wondering, I would love to connect with you." Right? You want to start off there first. Then that's once they connect with you, then I send a follow-up message. "Hi, Linda. Thank you for connecting with me. My name is Amanda. I am, a recent Bachelor of Business Administration project management graduate. I am interested in the position. I was wondering before I can apply if you could take 10 minutes out of your time just to give me a little bit more information as I'm new to this field." And that's my advice. Students have found it very helpful, but again, I feel like it depends on if that employer is using LinkedIn effectively or always. But again, don't always have to use LinkedIn. You can always go in person. That's also helpful as well, and stuff like that. I think that answers the question. So I guess
It
be
does.
very personable.
Can
Linda?
I add something to that?
Sure.
Also want to make sure that people are aware that when you're asking for an informational interview, it's not necessary that it's attached to a particular job opening. That you can definitely, and it's recommended to reach out to professionals in the field who are doing work you're interested in, working for a company that you're interested in, because you're not asking for a job, because if they don't have one, then they will say no, right? So basically say, I'm just starting out. I really admire, your career progression, and I'd like to learn from you. So I'm wondering if you could share some insights with me and just basically to get acquainted. And you're much more likely to have people responding with a yes if you approach it in that way.
Yeah.
Great. I have one more question for you, Amanda. We actually have a few questions we didn't get to with the time. But if anyone has any questions they wish to reach out to Career Services, we're more than happy to answer those questions. Where can I find like experiential opportunities to make sure that these are the right careers for me in the long run? Like, where can I find sort of opportunities to kind of almost dip my toe in the water and try things out?
So again, like you want to look at specific volunteer opportunities for that industry, specific, right? Maybe internship, whether that's paid or unpaid. You can look at things such like that, and everything can be found honestly online, or there's also mentorship programs that I mentioned before, and I'd be more than happy to give that out in more details. I can't think right now on the top of my head which ones, like the websites, but I'll guarantee if someone reach out to me, I'll have that ready for them.
Okay. Fabulous, Amanda. Thank you so much. That was such an informative webinar, and I look forward to seeing everybody on December 1st for the following webinar. As mentioned, the link is in the chat, and that's about negotiating job offers on December 1st, not to be missed. Thank you.